Hunting for that magical genie with piles of cash? Join Candace and her guests as they uncover financial secrets, have a laugh at past mistakes, and savor financial rebounds. Thank you for listening. Let's dive in and do something today that your future self will thank you for.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us on the Money Flow Genie podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, is Julie Holly, and I'm so excited to have her here. So let me tell you who Julie is so you know. She is a real estate syndicator from Three Keys Investments. She's also a fellow podcaster from the Conscious Investing podcast or Investor podcast. Sorry about that, Julie. And she also has the Conscious Book Club. Perfect guest to be here to talk about what we know as money, which is a tool. And when Julie she's active in both financial and personal potential in creating your personal development financially and mind, body, and spirit, I think, all encompassing of that. And she spends time with her family in Idaho, and she rides mountain biking to get it all together before she comes here on this podcast. Julie, welcome to the podcast.
I am so happy to be here, Candy. I'm so excited. We always have great conversations. And so I think it's going to be fun for you, listener, to hear because Candy and I always have very interesting conversations that lead to wonderful places.
Yeah, it's when I think about I went to a Hay House event and there was a gentleman there. I don't know if this is his real name or if this is his like tagline, Humble the Poet. And he had the most profound statement at the end of his presentation and it was talking about anxiety and which ties with money for most people. And his ending statement is that a destination is a journey, but destination can become an addiction. And that it still has chills that go up my spine. And I brought this up before in other podcasts. We can get so wrapped up in the chase of money and the power of money and what it is and let every other person's idea of what money means and what it's supposed to be to us. And it's just simply a piece of paper, if you think about it, that represents a value. So it's simply a tool. And when I think about tools, I think, okay, so let's break this down. So if I had a wrench in my hand, am I going to stress out about how I'm going to get this wrench? Like what do I use to operate this wrench or a saw? I'm using my hands to navigate it. Well, when I think about it that way, it's like, okay, so how can I think about money as a tool to basically peel away all the other stuff that comes with the societal pressures of money? Well, my brain is what I use to operate, and the choices that I make is how I use the tool of money, and that determines the trajectory of my life. So that's what I want to just get into, like a conversation about that and everything else or anything else that you want to talk about.
Oh gosh, I'm chomping at the bit already.
Go for it.
Just off the cuff, like two authors who discuss money in such a really great way. Michael Neal, in his book Super Coach, he actually has an entire chapter dedicated to money, and he breaks it down into seashells. And it's whatever the value is. You and I mentioned off air that I did, where I live in North Idaho, we barter and we make trades for things, and we're not using money. We're using our resources that we have in order to exchange, right? So what is the value that we're bringing, and really understanding that money represents the valuation of something. And so we can redefine that how we want. The other author, Phil Stutz, or Stutz, I guess, if we want to be super English, but he is, but in Lessons for Living, he has an entire essay. They're not particularly long, but it's on the same concept of why are we driving towards this? I think what's really most fascinating about this to me, because I would encourage everyone listening to go check out those books. They articulate this really well. Where I'd like to go that's interesting is how we're conditioned to value money. And it is coming from the outside onto us. And so from our very earliest years, for our parents have a relationship with money. Our grandparents had a relationship with money. Their parents had a relationship with money. And that is coming into our life, and it is impacting and influencing our perception of the value of money and the value of ourselves. And so now we go along and we're chasing money because we grew up in the haves or the have nots, either way. And so we're just operating out of that. And then I'll add one last thing because I know you're going to have some great things to exchange with this. Then we add people like Dave Ramsey, who has a concentrated way of thinking about money. And while I know that he serves so many people powerfully, if we are entrepreneurial, if we are creatives, it is actually oppressive and sets us back and prevents us from being able to lean into our greatest contribution. And so, because it's so restrictive, and this is how you have to do it, and you have to have the money and you have to pay cash for everything. But actually, if I view myself as a business and I'm investing in myself and I'm saying, well, actually, I need to invest 20, 50K into something so that I can expand myself. I myself am valuable. I am a worthy investment. If I invest in myself, I will be able to more than make up that money. So maybe I would do that for my business, something I can tangibly see. I would go and possibly get a small business loan, an SBA type thing, and fund the startup of a business. Why would I not fund the startup of me? Why would I not believe in me to do that? So I think it's interesting when we see how the ideologies of different money influencers in our culture have on people.
Wow. You're so true on that. And the two things. First thing is, I definitely see how the influence of these people, you're right. It's really great and it's helped a lot of people, the Dave Ramsey concept. Yet well, first of all, it touching back on investing in ourselves. We're not taught that we can talk about that. We're not taught that we can, that spending money on ourselves, you should be spending that on others. The other thing is that when we move forward in any kind of change that's happening internally, that's in a growth oriented way, we're not the same person by the time we finish, whether it's a program, even having a thought of thinking about joining a mentorship program or listening, whether it's something free. You don't necessarily have to pay for something in order to have it qualify as a growth material. You can go to the library and get a free book and read about it. By the time you read that book, you're not the same person because you have different opportunity ideas all laid out in front of you and you're thinking differently. We may not be conscious of that in the moment, but then all of a sudden we may be seeing, let's just use something really simple like real estate, because both of us are into that and we really love real estate. But if you are not familiar with real estate and then you hear people talking about it and you want to invest in it and you get a book and you read about real estate, I guarantee you, as you're driving down the road, you're going to start looking at whether single family houses, commercial buildings, apartment complexes. You're going to start noticing them and you start thinking about what you read about them in the book. And that's how simple and quick and easy the brain can start to change. And you are no longer that same person that originally stood in front of that bookshelf pulling that book off. Now, before we move on, because I forgot, and it ties right in, I have my self-praise showcase with the host. And this is where, Julie, all of my guests, I want you to share, and I also want to hold your space for you for this, and also space for the viewers who cannot come and share something that you're really proud about yourself.
Because we're talking about money in this way, a lot of us devalue ourselves when it comes to money. And because things come naturally to us, we think that it's actually not very valuable. And so we don't always expect the same compensation. So we think, I don't know. I mean, doesn't everybody think like this? Doesn't everybody operate like this? And so we devalue ourselves and what we bring to the table. And I think one of the most exciting things that is a little humble brag is that over the years, I've learned to value myself and then also to be compensated monetarily according to that value. I think some of the most exciting things I've done, having a conscious coaching client who can now, in her early 30s, get on an airplane and fly without anxiety. It's a massive contribution. There was a considerable investment in my coaching services to support her, but it's going to change her entire life. And then having a client who um, ends up establishing an extraordinary law firm and taking a bet and building that person up from the inside out and to see that person also compensated and providing and growing and creating jobs and such. It's so exciting. But that started with me reading a book, like you said, for free, then investing the $15-20 into multiple books, then investing into uh, a deeper investment, that investment into a mentorship program and taking that and then learning to value myself and taking action on that and raising rates accordingly and saying, well, I might not work with somebody for long, but it's going to have a forever impact in their life. And I love that. So I think the humble brag is learning, like I've learned and grown, and I will continue to value myself. And that it's okay for me to be compensated and to be compensated really well for that. Like, it's a beautiful thing.
Oh my God. Bravo, bravo for you. That's fantastic. And it's so powerful and so needed to hear, because it is very difficult to see our self-worth just in general. But then when you add the money exchange to it, the fear just can overwhelm, who am I? Who am I? Wow. I hope our listeners are getting just as much from that alone in itself. We could just the podcast. This is fabulous.
Well, and I would encourage everyone listening to actually start taking stock of yourself and saying, where am I undervaluing myself? Because we have a propensity to do that. And that is another element that we are conditioned to do societally. It's the humility. You don't want to have a big ego. And I'm using air quotes if you are listening, because those are air quotes. It's not a bad thing. It's not egotistical or arrogant to say, I know I can help somebody and I know it can change your life forever. And yeah, there is a price tag to it. And no, I'm not a greedy mongrel for that. But it's this valuation that's different. And so look into your own life and say, where am I undervaluing myself? And then do the deeper work and say, why? Why would I undervalue myself? I noticed that I was coaching for free for a long time. I realized I'm like, oh, this is why somebody told me I needed, my coach told me I needed to be coaching. And so once I realized I'd been coaching for free, I'm like, I would love to do this, but guess what? I love my family and my family in the element of having my children who are now teenagers in my home, in my tender loving care, and having those relationships. It's a small window of time. I want to be more present with them. I want to contribute to other people, but I need to be present with my family, and I want to be responsible with my usage of time and resources, right? And so that kind of led into, oh, I'm not valuing myself super, super great here.
Wow. Thinking about connecting the time and money, because ultimately people say, and often you'll hear, I want more money. Oh, if I only had this. It's really the freedom with time that is what you're pursuing money to gain the freedom with time. And a lot of times, I don't know if there's a little pun on that, but you can actually do both at the same time. And by making that choice to value yourself more and with compensation, that's what brought you the time, because you work less, receive more. and then therefore you're available for your family. And it doesn't mean in the interim of learning how to blend the two, because there's always that transition period. Okay, so I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to be still doing my other life that I had going on, but I'm going to transition that in some way. There's always, bumps in the road and trips and stress and all of that. How did you go about navigating your life and transitioning and applying what you desired to do?
I've done it multiple times in my lifetime. So it's not foreign territory for me. In my 20s, I went from being a public school educator into full-time real estate, residential real estate sales. Had the humility to say, this is right before, before the crash, and unethical things were happening. And I'm like, this is not my jam. I just don't even want to be around these people. Like, we didn't have YouTube podcasts. I didn't have the right support around me to where I could be the type of person. I didn't have the inner strength at that time. So I went back to education. I'm like, well, I love serving people as a teacher. I love being around kids and teaching. That's cool. So I've given myself, and then transitioned into motherhood, and then I transitioned into being a homeschool mom, and then I transitioned back into education. Then I transitioned into full-time real estate investing. So this is definitely a pattern in my life. And one of the most important things, two elements that have allowed me the ability to transition and to not see anything as a setback, but as a step forward, regardless of what it is having clarity and saying, for me, being vertically aligned, I love God. And so it's like, am I clear? Do I feel like I'm like walking in union with God? Cool. If I am, awesome. Whatever comes ahead, it's okay, because that is where I know I'm in alliance and I trust that implicitly. The second element is that there is no failure. And when you remove the concept of, oh, I failed, there are plenty of things I have tried that have not gone the way I've wanted them to go, and that I've decided to sunset. Like, well, maybe I don't want to offer that program anymore. Maybe this didn't work out exactly the way I want it to. Let me go back to the drawing board and see if I want to recalibrate it, retool it, or do I just want to just put it on the shelf? Like, it served its purpose. Because here's the thing, just like you were saying about books, you pick up a book, you read it, you're a different person by the end. That's why everyone needs to be constantly reading. And I do mean that. I'm not, by constant, I mean, yes, you might take a little break between books or something because we want to absorb it, but we need to have that as a regular practice. But this is also the internal shift and movement. Well, I tried that. I learned something about myself, which is the most powerful thing we can do, is if we can learn how we operate in the world around us, and if we can learn how others operate, we will be able to step into whatever the next thing is with so much more wisdom and insight and confidence and awareness. And so any transition that we make is an opportunity for growth. And every amount of growth has a compounding effect that allows us to do so much more. And let me clarify, by so much more, we don't need to be chasing more. We don't need to be chasing people or accolades or anything. All of those things are good. There's nothing wrong with it. But it's more of, for me, it's more about getting to know myself, my position in this world, the people around us. And it makes it very exciting. To me, that is living. And I don't want to leave anything on the table. When I depart this world, I just want to know that I lived, and I lived well.
Yes. And you hit the nail on the head with people focus on, if I have this, then that.
Oh gosh.
And that is so sad. It's so sad. And listen, I definitely have fallen prey to that. And I can definitely, sometimes I still catch myself going, whoa, wait a minute. This is not the same. I had a moment walking on the beach probably about 3 years ago. And, I'd entered the multifamily world. I was all excited. I was in my first, deal of 124 doors, which people, just because you have a number of doors that you're in on a general partner team doesn't mean anything. It just means you are a part of a business that owns 144 doors with a bunch of investors. Just want to put that out there for, it's not like, and I thought when that moment happened that I was going to have this new feeling forever in this body. And it was like the second day, how beautiful. I have the luxury of living in Cape Cod, Massachusetts. It was a beautiful foggy day on the beach. I'm walking in the fog. I'm feeling in the fog because I am shocked that because I am now in and have achieved, and I'll use the quotes, the air quotes, I've achieved, being in my first multifamily deal, that somehow my life is going to immediately feel completely different. Well, it did, because I had this new exciting, entity that I was a part of and learning how to operate and navigate through that. But I was still the same person inside emotionally, thinking that that thing, no matter what that thing is, could be a car, could be a multifamily project. Nothing had changed inside. And that was my epiphany. And you brought around God. For me, it's the universe, it's the divine. That was when it's like, I really need to find my center. I'm a very grounded person, and connecting with, the spirit of the universe. I believe that's everyone needs to have some type of higher power. It's imperative, because you're going to need it as you grow and change, because you're going to get really scared. And it's just not fear that anything, it's not the fear that the dinosaur's at the door. It's the fear of just like the unknown, and I don't, there's a lot of, I think everyone can relate to that. But
I love that. And living from, I've become more and more focused on living life from what I just like, the inside out. It's like, if you are responding to the world around you, you are actually, you don't have personal freedom. You don't have agency. And that is the hallmark of conscious investors, is personal freedom. Like, we can have financial freedom all we want, but guess what? Michael Neal, I can't take credit for this, in that book, Super Coach, he says, visualize yourself holding the amount of money that you have right now. Now visualize yourself as a millionaire. All of whatever our situation is, we will still have the same stress, the same fears, doubts, insecurities, anxieties, all of that. Money doesn't make those things go away. In fact, I fully believe money amplifies whatever is within. So the work is what is going on internally, so that whatever my net worth is, I'm showing up in the fullness of who I'm created to be and the beauty of who I'm created to be. And now it's me. It's not something on the outside, and I'm not basically a little puppet, that's being manipulated by other things. It is like, no, this is me, and this is what I have to offer the world.
when you think about exactly what you just said, it made me think about, when I have memories and I'm telling stories, I love telling stories. It's the experiences in life of the stories that I'm telling. It was that experience just now about the multifamily experience. It wasn't that one apartment building, that complex. It was about the experience. And that's what makes our lives full. And when you talk about the more money you have, and Tony Robbins even says this in I think the Money Makeover book. By the way, all of these books I'll have them in the resource page on the website. With more money comes more responsibility, because your life gets bigger and fuller, because you are able to expand and you're able to use your money to do things that you wanted to do. So let's just use something really tangible. And if someone wanted to have a particular car, well, you got to run that car, you got to maintain that car. Everything that's more expensive requires more. For instance, the insurance is more on that car. The excise tax is more on that car. The mechanic services is more on that car, because it's a higher end car. We can just, and that just goes with anything. And so more is not always better, but it's how we choose to use our time with money to be able to do the things we want to do. So what does all that mean? I mean, to me, that means I totally love the book. You're talking about books, Profit First. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's a simple concept. Basically, it's taking your money and like grandma used to and put it in the different envelopes every time you get paid. So you always have your rent, you always have your insurance, you always have everything is all groceries, everything's all lined up. But it's taught in a way to do it with a business. It's taught you can also apply it in your personal life, but it's taught in a way to make it habitual. And that's what we need to do with money, to make it habitual in the ways that we utilize it and think every time we spend $1, then how can I make this $1 two before I spend it? And that takes a lot of training because as in society, we are taught to be consumers. And you are a better person if you have this. I mean, look at all the ads. We don't even need to go there. But I just, it's really it's this is so powerful, this interview with you to talk about. It really is the inside job that needs to happen for sure. Now tell me, we talked a little bit before we started the podcast recording about generational wealth and legacy wealth. Like what does all that mean? What does wealth really mean to you?
I- This is so I'm creating a movement that's different in the space that you and I come from in the commercial real estate investing space. I often hear people talk about legacy wealth and generational wealth, and they want to create this entity, this money. And I'm going to say things that people might not agree with, and that's okay, but it's worth contemplating. And they want to create this oftentimes because they want to prevent and protect from the hardships that they have personally experienced or that they know can happen. It's like, okay, if I just amass this fortune and create my own family office and I can pass this down, then I can safeguard my family. It's short-sighted. It's absolutely short-sighted. Most wealth is lost by the third generation. 60% is lost by second, 80% is lost by the third generation because it's not given from the inside out. And so we have to have a different concept about what is legacy wealth, what is generational wealth. And that's where on a book I'm working on, it is actually broken down into 3 sections, right? We have tangible wealth, which I like to think that Gen Xers and boomers are really great with tangible wealth. We are great consumers. We love the toys. And by we, again, air quotes, generally speaking, and look at all the marketing out there and look at who's consuming, right? And so they have now you and I know very well, the luxury storage units where they can put all the big toys storage units that actually have, the community house where they can get together. Some of them actually have bedrooms and lofts and bars in them. And I mean, they can be very swanky just so that you can showcase your cars and your boats and your motorcycles and everything to your friends. So we have the tangible wealth. And then if you have a coin and you flip it over, we have the millennials. God bless you. I love you, millennials and Gen Zers. I'm raising a Gen Z and an Alpha, and that is experiences. And I always lovingly and affectionately say, we have our tattoos, and it's like, I was out and I was, in Costa Rica on my experiential trip, and this is how I remembered it. And it's just this download I received. And it's like deeply meaningful, right? There's nothing wrong with this. I am poking a little fun at everybody, but it makes sense. How is that any different than amassing tangible wealth? I'm piling up experiences. I'm amassing experiences. And guess what? They go when I go. Toys go when I go. We have to be thinking bigger. And so the edge of the coin is actually what I call transferable wealth. And this is what I'd like to see replace generational or legacy wealth. Transferable wealth is not tied to our net worth. So it is something that every single human has to offer the world. Every single one of us has transferable wealth within us. We are transferring our wisdom, knowledge, experience, expertise to those in our proximity, to those around us. You and I right now are operating in the realm of transferable wealth. We're creating content to help transfer our experiences and our thoughts to other people to help them and to create a ripple effect. Now, can we also transfer our wealth? Absolutely.
We can.
But I think a lot of times we're so focused on, we, again, generally speaking, can be so focused on amassing a net worth of having the destination of a dollar sign and a certain bank account that we are short sighted and we forget, if I don't transfer this wisdom, knowledge, experience, expertise, all of this, it's it's for want. It is worthless. And so it's really taking a look to say transferable wealth is transferring not just money. If there is money, I don't have to have money to transfer wealth. I can have it and transfer whatever it is I have. And I like this because it really is, it really levels the playing field, because you and I both know, I'm certain of it just because of who we are and our creative souls and things like that, right?
Yes.
Is that we know people who have substantial net worth, and we also know people who don't. And I learn just as much from everybody. It
There's no
has no,
difference.
there's,
There's no difference.
yes.
Let me just like touch in on that
Yeah.
my big aha. So I've had a landscaping business for 32 years, and that's my main source of income, and the real estate and everything is my side hustle, so to speak. One of my multiple things that I do. And years ago, my first aha moment about we're all the same was one of my clients is a very wealthy heir to a pharmaceutical company, single heir. So you can only imagine the money. Okay. He had, we were talking about putting a tree in with his new house, and it was not that expensive of a tree, particularly in the landscaping world, less than $200. So when we talked about it, he pondered and he said to me, I'm not really sure if that's in my budget. I thought it was going to fall over when I first heard that. And then I paused and caught myself, and I was really proud of myself, my little boasting moment, where I was like, wait a minute. It doesn't matter how much money you have. Everyone has budget. And this is his budget is, as everyone's budget should be, this is where I choose not to spend that $200. I'd rather spend that $200 on something else. It didn't bring him joy. It didn't bring him joy. And that is one of the things that I would like people to bring to their lives around money is joy, not extravagance to put yourself into stress, but to choose where do I want to spend my money? How do I want to receive my money so that I can experience more joy in this life in the here and now? Because that's what we have that gets us to that destination. And you can tell all those little stories along the way when you get there, because I hate to tell you, your destination is a journey. It will never happen because you're always on it. There is no end until, we go to the other life, and then there's really no end there in my perspective. But, it's like, it is exactly living when the here and now. And I love the idea. I love that. It is the side of the coin. It is our personal experiences. I feel like everything that I have learned and what I owe for everything that I've experienced, for instance, and then I'm going to end with, let you take the floor and then we'll end with that. I originally started the idea of this podcast because, over a decade ago, I was given the opportunity, and I'll call it an opportunity because it allowed me to grow tremendously. The child support payments of $15,000 that had to start immediately. Where's that extra money going to come from? That sent me on this quest. And I learned so much along that quest in order to fulfill that obligation. And I tripped and failed. And then I got myself back up and I continued on. There was a lot within, now that the obligation is complete, I reflect back, oh my gosh, so much did I learn. And particularly for those that may have any type of obligation come upon them like that, where you have no choice, you need to do this, then let me share with them. This is where I would like to contribute my side of the edge of the coin is to help people determine what is a better path to take and where not to waste your time. Because there's so much information out there. And if you don't know the smart questions to ask, and you won't because you haven't done it before, then that's where I want to come in to what information that I have from my own personal experience. And that's why I'm bringing in people like yourself to bring in your personal experience. And so that the person listening to this podcast can then take that and learn from us without having to hit those pitfalls or learn and move forward as opposed to continuously going backwards. Now you have the floor, Ms. Jeweler.
Oh, it's so important. When you realize that you have I survived then and I survived now. I went through a divorce in my early 20s, and that was the same time as Desert Storm. And it was really interesting because I just played off of that. I'm like, I can't make this stuff up. I just can't even make what I chose to leave an abusive marriage. I'm like, I can't even make up what happened and what I discovered afterwards. And one of them was that all of my bank account was frozen. I didn't know that he hadn't been paying the taxes. And so he sent me him. And it was just, every day there'd be something monumental like that. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is like Operation Freedom for me, right? And so cleaning it out, but then learning and having a major setback in early adulthood like that, where I don't know where I'm going to get the money to repay this, and learning how to navigate that. And then finding abundance and storing a lot of money away because I want to store this away and just create a security blanket, right? And then later finding myself in with a young family and finding ourselves in real estate's our only income, real estate sales. And there's this thing called, the Great Recession, and it just obliterated us. And to have the humility to go to, a government assistance, which was the most humbling moment of my life. I can now talk about it without actually getting glossy eyed. This is the first time actually. And that's 15 years ago at least. And so, well, at most, I suppose because I was a 15-year-old. But, all that to say is having the humility to go and say, I will put my ego aside in what I know because I have two people that we need to care for. And then to find great success again. Right. And so I think that some people look at success is always going up and it's a continuum and it can never it never goes down, or it might undulate slightly. But there was, say, a 15-year period where I got to go find to rock bottom, to high, to rock bottom. And then now it's more, it's a steady, beautiful climb and it feels great. But it's really interesting when you experience that and you say, we were happy. We had all of, God is great and kind and all of our needs were met. We were never in want. So you start to put into perspective. I love to encourage people to build a database of experiences. Don't listen to the fears, our lower brain. Let's look at the track record and experiences. Did I survive? And did I even maybe thrive in that? That's kind of weird, but it could have been hard. But just because something's challenging doesn't mean that we are suffocating and that it's horrible. I remember my grandma talking about the Great Depression and how, they didn't have much, but guess what? They were still able to make a cake. And they could make a cake and they scraped the batter and they used every bit of it and they licked that, that spatula, but they still had a cake. Right. And so I think sometimes we have to look at what is baseline and how do I operate within that? And to know that it's okay. I might be sky high right now. I could hit low, but I'm learning something in that process, and those gaps become closer and tighter together because of who we are becoming through the process because of what we're gaining through the process.
I agree. I think as you move up and you as you're expressing that you're just on this, it's a softer, gentler ride going up now,
Yeah.
that all the experiences as painful as they sound and work, those are what allow you to create your own gauges to know what your next move is, to not go to that. But it doesn't mean that there can't be something else that comes along. There's a certain lot of things that we don't have any control over.
There will be. And that's what I'm just like, there is going to be something else that happens. Because regardless of me, that is life. There were so many wonderful people set to retire in '08, '09, '10. And they were wise and they took good care of their resources, and outside circumstances came in. That was not, misjudgment on their part. That was something that happened. I just feel like we want to create this homeostasis, but it doesn't exist because the outside world is always going to do its little whatever whirlwind it's going to do. And so if we can build ourselves up from the inside out and approach it, then we can weather all those storms. We can walk through it and have the confidence to say, I know we're going to be okay. It looks nasty right now. We're going to be okay though. And we're going to weather this one. And on the other side, we'll be the better for it.
Beautiful. So I have one question for you, and I'll give you an example of what I mean by it. So I've been implementing like 10 minutes a day to do something that really brings me joy no matter what's going on. And I usually implement for myself in the morning. So I set a little timer, 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how much I want to do. Like I could stay longer, but I always make sure I'm an artist and I always go down in my studio, and I've been working on this one project for some time. And that's for a whole nother podcast or a whole nother discussion of what it is. But I go down every morning and just work on this sculpture. And I do it for 10 minutes a day. And when I come up from the studio, it is amazing how just that 10 minutes, I feel like I've really connected with myself and I've had like this moment of peace. So if you could share with listeners maybe something that you do that's habitual to do that, and we just want to encourage our listeners to find something and give yourself, everybody can find 10 minutes to do something like that. So what do you do to help yourself with that?
Okay, I do a lot and I have a lot to say on this, but I'll be brief. One, you don't have 10 minutes. No, nobody has 10 minutes to not do something for 10 minutes. And if you want to tell me that you don't have 10 minutes, give me a call, look at my schedule, look at my life. I don't have the luxury of not giving myself 10 minutes, because if I'm not investing in myself, if I'm not giving myself that space, then I am going to implode and I will not show up to the world in the fullness of who I'm created to be. And that is human nature. We need to nurture ourselves. We need that space to be. I'm talking with, I help a lot of people with, I do a lot of business consulting. I've talking about actually starting another company. And the whole premise of this company is play. Like now, if we are, I mean, and this partner and I, we're talking about it and said, if we're going to go down this path, the foundation of this is going to be, it's going to be play. We both have started businesses that are successful. So we know the rigors of business. And so we know we're going to face all of that, but we're already posturing ourselves with how do we position this from a position of play, joy, delight, and create that as a foundation so that when we do hit the challenges that will come, it's more like I'm even kind of having fun thinking about it. And we did, as we were talking about, we're like, oh yeah, we know that's going to happen. And that's good. We can see, we've done this, right? We need to invite play back into our lives. As I drove up to my office today, I was actually thinking about the potential prospect of starting this business, and that this is a foundation where I want to know. And it's so crazy that you said 10 minutes, because literally I was pulling my bag out of my car and stuff and thinking this needs to be part of our company culture. If we choose to go down this, I want to know every day how someone spent 10 minutes playing, creating, crafting, having fun, whatever it is, 10 minutes, whatever brings light and life back into your life. So it's absolutely imperative. So I do it in a lot of different ways. I will say I write, that.
Mhm.
And I've been setting a timer for 10 minutes. and doing 10-minute free writes. And I've been asking myself questions. So I'll probably start having some questions about this company. Like, well, you tap into the power of your subconscious mind. Like, I'm already thinking about things that I don't even know I'm thinking about, and I want to see them. And so now it's this fun, playful exploration into my own mind. And sometimes I'll ask myself a question, and sometimes I'll just write. You don't worry about grammar, punctuation, spelling. You just write. And I've had just the most fun discoveries about myself. And it allows me to understand myself better so that I can come to the world and come into my companies in a whole different way. It's so much fun. So I highly encourage, like you were saying, hey, I'm going to go down and spend 10 minutes, you know, in my art studio and creating. Phil Stutz in that book, Lessons on Living, actually speaks on this multiple times. There's a through line in all of his essays. And he talks about how higher level energy operates through action and creation. And because we were designed to be creators, if we want to have maximum flow in our life, we have to always have a level of creation taking place. I can't agree with him more. When I'm feeling depressed, anxious, or stagnant, it's because I'm not moving forward. I'm not creating.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We could talk for hours. But
I
maybe
know.
we'll have to do a part 2 at some point. This has been fantastic. I did for the value of time, your time and that of our listeners. I just want to say thank you so much and tell everyone how they can touch with you. And again, we will have this in show notes for everybody if you're listening and you're not able to write things down.
I love it. I love connecting with people. Social platforms, LinkedIn is a great place. You can look up Julie Holly. If you want to learn more about being a conscious investor and finding and discovering personal freedom and health, mindset, wealth, you can actually text the number 208-944-1836. And if you text freedom to that number, you'll get this beautifully designed. My brand Sherpa designed it. She took my words about personal freedom and she made it more like a magazine style. So it's really chunked and easy to read. It's, it's short, but it's inspiring to a lot of people. So I'd highly encourage you to text that and to get your hands on. It's called Beyond Financial Freedoms.
Oh my gosh. That's so fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie. This has been wonderful.
Thank
I hope
you.
everyone else enjoyed it as much as I did. And I want to remember to remind everyone listening that you are your own genie in the bottle. You really are. There's not anything out there. It's all within. So do something today that your future self will thank you for. And I really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to this podcast and do something good for yourself today. Thank you so much, Julie.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
The info in this podcast is straight from our personal experiences. You alone possess the power to manifest your desires. You are the genie in the bottle, awaiting your command. So ask smart questions. We're not licensed financial pros, so be sure to consult with a licensed professional, attorney, or tax consultant.